Hi, today we'll be talking about negotiation. This video is inspired by the book that I recently read called Never Split the Difference, Negotiating as if your life depended on it. This book is written by Chris Voss, who was in the FBI and did negotiation with terrorists, kidnappers and other sort of criminals. So it's a very interesting read. I recommend that you read it. But I've compiled the best techniques from that book and from other sources, and I'm presenting them to you today. There are two key takeaways to negotiation. The first one is emotional control, emotional connection. You must be able to emotionally connect with the party that you're negotiating with. And number two is the illusion of control. The party that you're negotiating with must feel like they're in control, even if they're not. So let's talk about the first key method of negotiation, emotional connections, right? So within emotional connections, there are two main ways of negotiating. The two techniques are mirroring and labeling. Let's talk about mirroring first. Mirroring is like a mirror, right? You're mirroring information. And how that works is that when someone says something to you, you basically repeat it back to them. You're like a waiter, right? You know how you go to a restaurant and order food? You might tell the waiter like your order, and the waiter repeats it back to you. In the same way, when you're talking to someone, it might be in a negotiation or a simple conversation, you repeating back a little bit of what they're saying helps build trust. It feels like they're being heard, they're not talking to a wall. A really easy technique in the book that they've mentioned is repeating the last 2 to 3 words of any sentence. This will help the person that you're talking to feel comfortable. There's a study that was published, and waiters that use positive feedback when they take someone's order versus repeating the order back, so mirroring. When they compared these two things, so mirroring and positive feedback, they found that mirroring was a lot more effective in getting higher tips. That means people were more happy when their order was mirrored to them, as in repeated to them, versus them telling, okay, I got your order. The second technique is labeling. Imagine a negotiation, right? You're doing a deal. They're giving you a deal, but they're like, we cannot afford it right now. So you might label it by saying something like, it seems like you're going through financial troubles right now. And then after that you might say, but as to why this deal is important or whatever. Maybe their boss is not allowing them to go through with the deal, but they want to go through, and it's a little hard to tell, right? So you might say something like, it seems like your superiors are pressurizing you or not giving you the approval you need, or something like that, right? What this does is, in a sense, when they feel uncomfortable with sharing information, you kind of pull that information out of them, and that makes them feel a lot more trusted. And instead of saying I feel like, when you say it seems like, it takes the attention away from you. When you say I seem or I feel, if you're drawing the attention back to you. You don't want that. You want the attention to be on the other party because you're negotiating with them. Labeling basically employs something called tactical empathy. Empathy, in case you don't know, is the ability to understand someone else's perspectives, to be able to put yourself in someone else's shoes and be able to feel the emotions that they're feeling. You don't need to sympathize. Sympathize is feeling bad for them. You don't need to sympathize, you just need to be able to understand what they're going through. Tactical empathy is being able to understand what they're going through and why they're going through it. What's the reasoning behind it? Why you try to be tactically empathetical is so you can label their emotions, right? The root emotions or the root causes behind. And what you can do is, a lot of times these emotions are negative, right? The reason you're negotiating is because you weren't able to reach a happy consensus the first time around. So by labeling, you can bring something negative, like the other party might be going through a financial issue, time restriction, the superiors might not agree on the deal or something like that, right? So in such a case, you can label a negative situation into a positive one, right? You've acknowledged it and you say, look, I understand that, and you've created that negative emotion into something positive by acknowledging it, which makes the other party trust you a lot more. So these are the two emotional techniques, labeling and also mirroring. So next, let's talk about the second key of negotiation, illusion of control. We just talked about the first one, which is empathy. So within illusion of control, we'll be talking about 3 methods. The first one is yes and no questions, emphasizing no questions over yes questions. The second method is calibrated questions, and the third method is asking the other parties to say that's right. So let's talk about yes and no questions first. Picture this. I'm going to give you 2 scenarios. I'm going to call you and ask you I'm going to deliver 2 messages to you. The first one is, hello, would you like to donate to my political party? I'm going to help lower taxes. Or the second call would be, hi, are you going to let the other party ruin this country by raising taxes? Either way, which one do you think is more powerful? The first one, for successful response, right? The first one would elicit, yes, I do want to donate to your party because you want to lower taxes. The second one is, no, I will not let the other party destroy this country, and that's why I'll donate to your party. So if you want a donation, which one would you pick? You'd pick, traditionally people would say, go for the traditional question, right? Try to get a yes out of them. You might ask them, hi, do you like your country? Yes. Do you love your family? Yes. Do you enjoy money? Yes. Do you want to have more money and help the country? Yes. Donate to this political party? Yes. That's how they try to get answers, right? Yes, 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 yes. It's called the foot in the door technique, where you say yes the first time and then they expect you to say, that's going to prime you to say yes the second time. Well, in negotiation, saying no is actually proven to be more effective, because what saying no does is gives you the illusion of control. You make a choice. In fact, it's priming you to look at the other possibility, which is, what if you don't do it, right? In the yes situation, you look at only what could happen hypothetically. In the no question, how they frame it is, what would happen in a situation that you said decline them, right? What would happen in a situation in which you didn't support them or didn't go through with the deal? And this is called loss aversion. Loss aversion is basically choosing deals to prevent a loss, right? Instead of choosing a deal that will create a gain for you, you choose a deal that will prevent a loss, right? You don't want to lose something, so you hop on that. It's like a sale, right? The sale is going to end in 2 days, so you hop on the sale now. The next method that we'll be talking about is calibrated questions. Now, calibrated questions is basically asking the other party a lot of specific questions that are open-ended, right? You don't want to ask questions that elicit yes or no responses. Calibrated question looks something like, does this work for you? Versus, how do you feel about this? When you ask someone, does this work for you? Right, like a deal, right? Does this deal work for you? You're kind of inclining them. You've framed it in such a way that they're inclined to say yes, right? Yes, this deal works for me versus no. And what this leads to is problems or any sort of issues are not necessarily highlighted, versus how does this deal look like to you? In which case they can open up and share more information. Calibrated questions are all about this. Calibrated questions are about getting more information out of the other side, so you can understand them better and use this understanding to your advantage to create a better negotiation tactic. Another calibrated question could be something like, if they lowball you, that means they give you an offer that's too low for you to accept, or something that you cannot accept in a negotiation situation. You might tell them, how can I justify that, or how can I do that, rather than no, right? What you do by asking this question is, now you're flipping it back to them. Okay, so you've given me your offer. Now, if you step into my shoes, how would you justify that? It forces them to feel more empathetic towards you. Remember, we talked about empathy. Now you're forcing the other party to feel more empathetic towards you, so they can put themselves into your shoes and then consider the option that they have given you from your perspective. Another tip is never using why in any sort of calibrated question. Instead of saying, why are you giving me this offer, you might ask, could you explain why you're giving me this offer, or what's the rationale behind giving me this offer? When you say why, it sounds a bit aggressive and the other person gets defensive. It's a little bit insulting to the other person, and sometimes what happens is they put their guard up. They feel insulted, and they might not be able to emotionally connect with you. And remember, emotional connection was the first key to negotiation. So that's why avoiding the term why can help you build a better emotional connection through calibrated questions. And lastly, just know that giving them questions to answer gives them the illusion of control. They think that they can answer in whatever way possible, and therefore they feel like they're in control and they're more comfortable with the negotiation. Lastly, we're going to talk about using that's right in negotiation. That's right is basically getting the other party to agree with, yes, you're right. When the other party agrees with something like, you're right, you tell the other person something, maybe you're convincing a friend to drop a habit, right? You explain something, you explain the logical rationale behind it, and they'll say, yeah, you're right. The issue with saying you're right is that they necessarily haven't agreed with it. They've agreed that you're right, but they haven't realized it as much as themselves, right? If you use calibrated questions to nudge them towards their own understanding, right? Their own epiphany, their own, light bulb in their head, they will themselves say, that's right, versus you're right. When they say that's right, they're acknowledging it themselves versus acknowledging you saying you're right. So in a negotiation situation, if you can explain your side to them and say, does this make sense, or rather than, do you understand why I'm doing this, they'll be more inclined to say something like, that's right, versus you're right. When they say that's right, they've acknowledged the realization themselves, and it's a lot more powerful of a means in negotiating. The last bonus method that we're going to talk about is called acquisition audits. It's a crazy sounding name, but it's a very, very, very simple technique, and it's very powerful. It's used for extreme sort of offers, right? Imagine you're employing someone and you're going to employ them for really, really cheap, or you're going to try to negotiate to employ them for really cheap, or you're going to offer, or you're requesting for funds, right? You're requesting for maybe a donation or some sort of funding, and you want to request for extremely high funding. What you're going to do is, before you even mention your price, what you're going to do is, or before you mention your deal, what you're going to do is you're going to label. You're going to use labeling. Remember how we said labeling is acknowledging their emotions? You're going to do the same thing. Imagine, I'll take the example of you're going to offer a job to an employee for a really low amount of money. You might say something like, it'll seem like I'm disrespecting you with this offer. It'll seem like I don't value your time, your skills. It'll seem that this is a joke. But, and then you give your reasoning, but we only have the budget for one person. We're only, my boss has barely approved this. I really want to help you out. I want to, there are going to be bonuses at the end of the year, whatever, right? Then you kind of give some pros of your offer, and then at the end you tell them your offer. It's scientifically proven. They've done a lot of tests on this with a lot of numbers, and it shows that by priming them, which is by labeling their emotions beforehand, by saying that I know this is going to sound really bad, I know this is this, but I'm not trying to be insulting, I'm not trying to lowball you or whatever. People tend to accept you, and they're preconditioned to hear you out, and they're not going to jump to their early conclusion of, oh, this guy's a joke, this guy's disrespecting me or whatever. Of course not. Of course I'm not going to do it. Studies have shown that people tend to be okay with that, and the same thing goes for very high. If you're asking for something, a ridiculous amount of funding, you could always start with So yeah, those are the two keys for successful negotiation: emotional connection, and secondly, giving the illusion of control. Accusation audits is one of the bonus tips that was mentioned in Chris Voss's book, of negotiation. In fact, if you do want to learn more about it, I'll link it down below. It's a really good read. I hope you enjoyed the video. Thanks.